Hello. There's so much pain and suffering going on at the moment in Ukraine, and you just pray that it's not going to get any worse and it can soon end. And hopefully the West can do more to help those poor people who've suffered so much over the centuries. They're a really tough bunch. And one thing I've learned from history is that you just don't take on the Ukrainians. They're as tough as they get, and they're defending, and the Russians had no idea, or Putin had no idea just how tough they were going to be. So good for you guys, you know, but we must do more in the West. I think in the long term we've got to be looking at that 5% of oil we take from Russia. There's so many sanctions going on at the moment. We all have our job to do. I'm not paid to promote EVs. I just think it's good for the planet, it's good for the future, and it's great for my pocket. Initially, the cost of an EV is a bit more expensive than a gas petrol car, but in the long term, so much cheaper. You may be here for the first time, and if you are, you might be just thinking, well, is it time I got an EV? And I would say, yes, 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 and I'll tell you why, and please stick around to the end. There are so many reasons. I mean, I've had the car for 6 months now. It's a Tesla, but there's many other brands available. There are just so many brands. But my Tesla's done 4,500 miles and has cost me very, very little in electricity. If you take the Tesla superchargers, because most people will charge at home, but you might not be able to. A Tesla supercharger works out about 7p a mile. That's if you go on a road trip and you can't charge at home. But I've been to Scotland, Wales, Isle of Wight, all over, and I live in Cornwall. A gas car's going to be costing you 17, 18p plus per mile, and you've got all the servicing. I haven't had any servicing in my Tesla. But I'm not just going to talk about Teslas today. I'm going to talk about all electric vehicles. And over the 6 months I've had the car, the average price has been 4p a mile, and that's less than a quarter of what it would be for gas. And that's using some Tesla superchargers, charging at home, and also destination chargers. When you have an EV, most people probably don't need a big range for the amount of miles they do, and you get in at night and you plug it in your garage or just outside your house. And if you can't do that, you can charge while you're at work, at the supermarket, and there's so many places. I recommend that you get the Zap Map app. Try saying that when you've had a few drinks, and just see how many are in your area. You've probably seen one or two, but you've got no idea how many public charging stations there are. So you've got the initial cost, which is a bit dearer, but in the long term it's much cheaper. I've had no servicing. My only cost, and don't get worried at this, is software updates, because I can't get the car close enough for my Wi-Fi. I've had to do a hotspot on my phone. But don't worry, if you're my age or don't feel comfortable with software, a young person can do it for you. It's really very simple. Tesla have made everything so very, very, very simple. Like when we come to a halt on a hill, it doesn't go backwards. It knows that you probably don't want to go backwards, so you don't. It's that simple. The car is linked to the phone, and you also have a key card, so when you walk away from the car, the doors close, it locks itself, and when you get to the car it all opens. It's very, very simple. But there are so many other options, because yeah, a Tesla is going to cost you 45,000 new. You can probably get a used one for about 38, but that's still a lot of money. If you go to Auto Trader, where they've got what, 1 million cars, 500,000 cars for sale, there are 8,000 electric vehicles, and there are 730 Teslas. And they kind of start around £6,000–7,000 but I've noticed there's quite a few Nissan Leafs with a few miles on the clock, around 15–16,000 miles, and these have been the backbone of EVs up until sort of Tesla arriving. They were in this country long before Teslas, and they're really, really good. So you've got so much to choose from with the Auto Trader, lots of cars there for sale. You've got dealerships, many have electric cars, and you've got dealers now just specialising in electric cars like R. Simmons, Bournemouth Way and Drive Green. I don't think they're that far away from each other actually, but Drive Green and R. Simmons they specialise in selling electric cars, and they're great YouTubers. So you may have done already, but if you haven't, I'll put a link below. Drive Green and R. Simmons talk a lot about how to charge and the day-to-day running of an electric vehicle. I mean, I'm not paid by the EV companies. I'm just a regular guy that thinks that they're great, and if I couldn't have afforded a Tesla, I would have probably bought an MG or a Nissan, and there are so many, Hyundai, possibly Volkswagen. There are just so many to choose from. Every manufacturer is now making an electric car. So if you've got any questions, please ask. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may be interested in. The home charging problem is, and not everyone can do that, you look at alternatives and you have to plan things. So it could be that there's somewhere you can charge near work or car park, and sometimes it can be free, and the Zap Map is a great way of planning it. So, you know, just because maybe you live in an apartment block, you can't maybe you can't actually charge at the moment. You can speak to the owner's landlord about, is there any chance of getting an electric charging point in, and it's always going to be cheaper than petrol. The price of the charging points, the public chargers, there's one or two that getting close to the price of petrol, but you can see who they actually are, and they're kind of an emergency. I think they would be for emergency use, and if you're really desperate. But most cases you're paying, as I do, paying overnight in the early hours of the morning under 2p a mile, and because I'm with Octopus Energy. But prices will vary, but it's always going to be cheaper than the pesky diesel or petrol. So it's something that's you've got to plan trips. For example, let me give you an example. If you're going on a long trip, would you get fuel on the motorway? Well, you might have to, but I don't know if you're like me, you'd probably fill up before you got on that motorway, and hopefully get enough on the motorway to get you off the motorway, and then you fill up again. Because you know, in motorways it's 10p a mile dearer, you know, and EV charging points do vary, and most are very reasonable. There's just one or two you've got to be wary of, that, but they're still charging. It's still charging you less than the cost of fuel. And they're the ones that I think are being quite greedy. So, all in all, I hope that this may have been some use to you. I could never go back to running a petrol car again. I love the performance, the looks of my car, but I think all the electric vehicles are looking pretty good. Not a fan on SUVs or four-wheel drive type. But then again, that's the way of the world. That seems to be the way they're going. MG make the only estate car, and that's one that I would be very interested if I had not bought this Tesla. But so anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope it has been of some use to you, and please leave your comment below, and if you could subscribe and like, that's fantastic. Take care. Bye.